welcome to The Appointment. I'm Shireen Bhan, and we're in conversation with a man who runs a motorcycle company that has one of the most coveted brands in the world. Stefan from KTM, appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Let me start by asking you about how the year has gone by for you. It's looking very, very strong, despite the fact that we've seen tough times in Europe. You've managed to beat expectations. You've grown at over 30% for the month of October, and you're targeting 100,000 in terms of the number of units you'll be able to sell in 2012. On track to meet that?
We are precisely on track that. It is becoming the best year ever in KTM. So we are touching 100,000. We are exceeding a little bit, maybe 105, 106,000 by the end of this year. Sales about 610 euros. A very good result. So despite the situation that especially Europe is doing very bad, the total market, you can read and hear around, US is bouncing back, and the big growth rate is coming from Asia, Southeast Asia, and especially India.
Yeah, you talked about how growth is coming from emerging markets like India. Would you have been able to do the 100,000 mark without the alliance with Bajaj? Has Bajaj, in that sense, really been the growth driver for KTM when it comes to volume?
Yes, absolutely. Never ever we would have gotten this chance to sell motorcycles in these areas, because based on the alliance with Bajaj, we can combine the technology of KTM with the very cost-efficient mass production of Bajaj, and so we could create entrance bikes or small displacement bikes, real KTMs on a competitive price.
So what has been the experience now? You know, this partnership has been on since 2007. You're actually manufacturing here in India. You're now selling in India. You're also exporting from India to the rest of the world. In terms of value engineering, in terms of how you can actually bring costs down, and in terms of development and design, because you're working very, very closely with the Bajaj team, what's the experience really been like?
I think it has started already more than 5 years ago. That was the first meeting with Rajiv Bajaj. Already in the first meeting, the chemistry worked very well. We appreciate each other, and we built up a real strong trust base. And based on that personal relationship, we were able to bring both strengths of the company together. And meanwhile, it's not just the CEOs, it's also all the R&D people, production people, quality people. They like to come to India, vice versa, and they like to work together in different projects.
But it's hard, right? I mean, especially, CEOs interacting with each other is one thing, but getting two R&D teams to actually work together towards one common shared vision, one common goal, that perhaps couldn't have been that easy. How have you been able to coordinate and collaborate?
First of all, you must be a little bit patient. It doesn't come overnight. It's a hard work to convince people on both sides. That's one thing. But on the top level, on the management level, there's not big difference between the huge Bajaj group and the KTM. So there's no difference between India and Austria. Okay, in the quantities is a huge difference, and also in some systems developing things. But we have, I would say, taken the best of both sides and doing a great job together.
Well, speaking of this relationship, Bajaj now holds about 47% in KTM. They have been upping their stake in the company. You continue to be the largest shareholder. The majority control rests with you. Could there be the possibility of that changing or becoming a more equal partnership in terms of shareholding?
Rajiv Bajaj and myself, we have agreed that based on that situation right now, we are proceeding for the next couple of years and try to work out as much as it gets on common projects, on common motorcycles, even on maybe common export markets. And then let's see. We have a huge
So you're not willing to give up majority control just
for
yet?
that, because it's a personality-driven business. Yeah. So as the brand KTM is ready to race, we like competition, and that needs one man he's in the front of.
Okay.
He stands for. So that's the thing, and I'm an entrepreneur, and I like that, and I would take all the responsibility. and I like to work together with Rajiv.
Well, speaking of working together, you're now part of a tripartite alliance in that sense, because there's KTM, Kawasaki and Bajaj as part of the global alliance that Bajaj has structured together. How do you benefit from it, and how do you actually leverage this tripartite agreement?
The Kawasaki thing doesn't interfere the relationship between Bajaj and KTM, because firstly, it was Bajaj has a long-term relationship with Kawasaki, and we knew that Kawasaki has a certain alliance. On the other hand,
could you leverage it, though? Could you leverage that relationship?
Anyway, the 4 Japanese brands are my most favorite competitors, because meanwhile I'm the world market leader in off-road competition, and I had to overtake all 4 Japanese. And within this segment, Kawasaki is, I would say, my most liked competitor.
Okay.
Because the brand content is a little bit similar. They are very good in racing. So I like the competition.
You had no apprehensions of the coming together of this alliance?
No. As a competitor, you have to do a fair play, and the better one wins. And that's the story.
Well, speaking of Japanese competitors, I understand that your competitors have actually been at your headquarters visiting with you. What is happening as far as the global pecking order is concerned? I understand it's likely to be a photo finish between you and BMW this year or perhaps next year.
Quantity-wise, it could be this year. That's a photo finish. Yeah, we are coming too close to 106,000. Let's see what the units are telling us at the end. That's one thing. Regarding the Japanese competitors, I have a huge respect for Japanese companies. I'm working already 20 years in the motorcycle industry. I have learned a lot from the Japanese, and that's the reason they have a big respect. And obviously, it's the other side also, that the big competitors are respecting. Meanwhile, the little KTM as a very successful player in different niches.
Are they watching closely this alliance that you've been able to structure with Bajaj? Is that the reason for their interest now in KTM?
That's a part of our success, for sure. That's one of the main reasons, because that alliance, Bajaj with KTM, that it's high technology with that cost-efficient production structure, and I think that could create really a powerhouse in the future in the power two-wheeler industry.
Do you think you've started a trend? Because there's been conversations between BMW and TVS, if one is given to believe what one hears at this point in time. Do you believe that the Bajaj-KTM alliance, in a sense, has started perhaps a trend of actually seeing companies like BMW and other global motorcycle brands tying up with an Indian partner?
For sure, a part of the Japanese, we have created this main trend, and always it's not unusual that somebody is doing a very successful thing, others are starting to be or to copy it. That's, I think, part of the business.
So what have you heard? Is BMW going to tie up with TVS?
I've heard about it, but I think it's well known. But it's not the same as Bajaj and KTM, because it's always based on the relationship between, I would say, the main decision makers. And the culture must be a little bit similar. And if you have a huge group like a car manufacturer and a small little company, let's see what's coming out.
Okay, speaking of what is expected from this alliance now, you launched the KTM Duke in India. It's met with a lot of success. What about the 125? Because that is being exported from here to Europe. It's done extremely well for you, largely responsible for the kind of volume growth that you've seen. Are we likely to see that in India anytime soon, or is it too close to the Pulsar territory?
I would say the 125 is a very specific displacement for the European market, because that's more or less the moped class. You can ride on age of 16. That's very European style. But for India, I can expect maybe a 180, 190 cc Duke, not a 125. We expect additional displacements. A 390 is coming, a full-fat version, and a so-called dual-purpose enduro version. So by the end, we have a full model range where we can settle in all these, and especially Asian markets.
Would the priority, though, for the Indian market at this point be at the higher end as opposed to the lower end displacement?
We will focus more on the higher end, and especially keeping the brand content of KTM very sharp. That means ready to race. It's always the best performing engine, very good design which looks different to the others. That's our style selling motorcycles, and that style we want to adapt to the Indian situation, but we still want to target on the higher growth.
So how soon can we see the next KTM Bajaj launch for India?
As a next, we expect the full-fared 390 and maybe a 200.
Okay.
We're also thinking to make one step lower, below 200. It's 180 or 190, to make a more price competitive model. So there are so many units.
What's the timeline that we're
talking about? Between 12 and 18 months. So every 6 months something will come.
On that note, we'll take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back with you. You're watching The Appointment. Welcome back. You're watching The Appointment. We're in conversation with the global CEO of KTM. You know, this common platform approach that you've adopted, which is working very, very well for this alliance, this is something now that others are beginning to talk about as well. What has been the big learning for you as far as this common platform approach is concerned? I
think what I've learned from Bajaj is to look very specifically on every detail, that the usage of a part is as much as you can in different platforms. As a high-performance manufacturer, you're always looking on the best, highest performance, and sometimes losing a little bit the cost efficiency. So that was the learning from this side, where we are benefiting very much. Secondly, I think fortunately, when we decided to make that engine platforms, we were, I think, the first that recognized after an outcome of the crisis, what we are facing worldwide, and especially in Europe, is that the power two-wheeler is becoming again a transportation item. And so the displacement between 125 up to 400 cc will become in the future a common transportation item. So when we talk about value engineering, and clearly that impacts margins as well significantly, what kind of margins are you likely to enjoy given the fact that you now have this alliance which is working very, very well and something that you can leverage on? The biggest advantage for KTM, still we are selling, for us it's 10,000 units a model, it's outstanding, but for Indian circumstances it's nothing. Yeah? So to achieve a competitive price level, that means that we are sharing the platform. So the same platform is used in a Pulsar, which has 10 times, 15 times quantity, and that's the big benefit for the KTM. On the other hand, the technology, what we brought in, gives the Pulsar the chance to compete really successfully against the Japanese competition. So specifically about the Indian market, I understand you've sold about 9,000 odd of the KTM in India this year. What is the expectation now, given the fact that we are going to see more launches as well from you? For sure, we can reach 10 times the size what we have right now. Yeah, it's a very price-sensitive market, what I've learned. Yeah. Secondly, if we can offer 3 different models and we can offer various of several displacements, I think why not selling 80,000? But what is the target that you're working with, for instance, for 2013? For 2013, we expect around 35,000 units coming out of the production in Pune, which is spread out all the emerging markets, Europe and including India. But what's my vision? It's a clear vision. Within the next 3-4 years, I want to have 100,000 coming from the Pune production from Bajaj. And hopefully 100,000 split between equally between the export market and the domestic market here? Yeah, that's obviously then the outcome. Okay. So and for whole KTM, it means 100,000 produced in Austria, the high performance off-road and on-road models, and 100,000 are coming from Pune. In terms of new markets that you will be looking at, Thailand, Indonesia, how soon can we actually expect you foraying into them through this alliance? We have already set up a CKD operation in Malaysia together with Bajaj. We have partnered a local Malaysian partner for that. It's already in place. We have already sent around 3,000 units there. From Malaysia, it's possible to serve Thailand as well.
Okay.
We just set up an own marketing and sales subsidiary in Singapore as the center in that ASEAN countries. Indonesia is doing also already very well. So we are already there on a small scale, but within 2-3 years we will have significant numbers.
You know, you're sitting in India and it's inevitable whenever you talk India, you talk China as well. Any plans to look at China?
In China, I have a very, I'm very careful because for me it's the culture doesn't fit in my culture. So as a race brand, I want to win. And honestly saying, if you go to China, you can just get the second place, and that's not what I like, honestly saying.
Speaking of, you know, second place, and I come back to my question on your battle with BMW, the Husqvarna acquisition. How are you looking at that, and do you think it's going to make a big difference as far as your photo finish with BMW is concerned?
I think it's if you're running several brands within a group, it's more difficult compared to a single brand company like KTM. For us, it's much easier coming from off-road and going on-road because we are focusing on one brand. If you are splitting up your resources in different brands, it's difficult. And especially if you don't have that close linkage to that segment, to that customer, then you are struggling.
So do you believe Husqvarna may be on the block up for sale again anytime soon?
In Italy can happen.
Would you be a buyer if that were to be the case?
Based on our market share, yeah, we have to think about maybe it's a European brand, it's a Scandinavian brand. We still have a brand in our group. It's unknown outside of Europe. It's Husaberg. It is the former spin-off of Husqvarna when Husqvarna were sold in the late 80s. They have created a spin-off on that company we bought in '94, and is meanwhile integrated in KTM with a different styling, with a different color, but using a lot of platform components, and so it's very successful. It's already half the size of Husqvarna.
What about the US? Because again, that's been a difficult market for you. How's growth looking like in the US and in Canada for you at this point in time?
Traditionally, US was always one of our best markets. We are in US. We are already bigger than BMW. So that's just to make a statement. And since 20 years, and the American market went down dramatically from 08 to 09. But since more than a year, it's a very stable ground, and now it's starting slightly going up, single digit. Okay, we lost 50% of the volume, but it's going up, and in US, the customer already is, I think that the printed money is flowing to the retail financing, and as an American gets a credit, then he buys. And so it's
so things are looking better.
Yeah, it's looking better from a different level, but it's looking better. And we are doing very good. We have a plus of almost 25% compared to last year. It's based on several things, new models, racing success. So US dollar, the currency rate is very okay. So US is, I would say, currently one of the backbones of our markets around the world.
In general, it's been a better year for European manufacturers, has it not? Because you, BMW, Ducati, doing better than, for instance, Harley or even the Japanese. Why would you think that's happened?
Is doing not bad. We shouldn't underrate Harley's as a motorcycle, as a big motorcycle producer in that specific segment. By far, the market leader in the cruiser segment is doing well. But you are right. Brands which have focused very sharply throughout the crisis and delivering content and good products, they have benefited out of the crisis. Yeah, so that for me it's a clear message. We didn't stop development. We had that alliance with Bajaj. We were pushing, although I had a very tough time on 09, then we were pushing another developments, and with new models you can get out of a crisis.
So there's a very clear understanding between you and Bajaj that at the back end, while you may share a common platform, at the front end, you know, they're two very distinct brands and they're going to be managed very, very differently as well. Yes. And that perhaps is one of the attributes of the success of your strategy.
We didn't mix up, yeah. We were discussing very often, can we use double branding, this or that, but it's clear. KTM should stay very sharp, very clear. The Balsa line has a clear profile and don't mix it up, and so I think we have all the instruments to compete very successfully globally against Japanese brands.
So the next time you're going to be here in India, are you going to be at the launch of the 180 or the 190 or the 390?
I always like come to India. It doesn't matter which model we are launching, but for sure I think the next one is the full fat.
The full fat. All right. Well, congratulations, and we hope that you do manage to close the year with the 100,000 mark, which will be the best in the company's history. Appreciate you joining us here on CNBC TV 18.
Thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, it is time for us to wrap up this appointment. We'll see you again next week. Till then, from the entire team, goodbye, and many thanks for watching.